Hello, my name is Jillian Hess, and I'm the Public Relations and Outreach Manager at Union Station Redevelopment Corporation in Washington, D.C. Today, I'm talking with Beverley Swaim-Staley, the outgoing President and CEO of Union Station Redevelopment Corporation, also known by the acronym USRC. So Beverley, after the 2011 earthquake, please describe Union Station, especially the main hall, and the restoration work that was undertaken.
Well, after the earthquake, it was very interesting. Most people did not know that there was damage here at Washington Union Station. There was a lot of publicity about the Washington Monument and the cathedral, but we also had extensive damage here. And if you came into the main hall, you would have seen this ugly black netting stretched from one end of the main hall to the other, most unsightly, as the USRC board and folks worked to determine how best to address the earthquake damage that was here at Union Station, and also to assess the building to make sure that the building would be strong enough to sustain earthquakes in the future. So credit goes to the USRC board. They did a full assessment, and the good news is it is a very strong building, and while there was ceiling damage, what we actually learned was much of the damage was actually due to the age of the ceiling and the fact that it had not been restored in the 1980s renovation. So there was earthquake damage, but it actually really helped us to learn and correct a problem that would have become a larger problem over time. So a massive steel structure that people can't see when they come into the main hall is actually now supporting that roof, attaching it to the ceiling, and then also completely replastered and repainted. And then through the National Historic Trust, American Express actually contributed to the 23-karat gold that you see when you walk into the station. So it was a long project. It took several years, very expensive, but what you see in the main hall now will last us probably close to the next century.
That's great. It's wonderful that all that work was done. So before, in the 1980s and up until that restoration, there was a center cafe and fountains in the main hall. Please tell me why they were removed.
They were not very popular when they were put in the 1980s renovation. As you can imagine, the idea of sort of ruining Burnham's, Daniel Burnham, the original architect in 1906, his vision of that very elegant and large and massive main hall, one of the largest rooms in the world, and putting in a cafe and fountains was not well received. But other considerations were brought to bear, and so they were put in as part of the renovation in the 1980s. But I think everybody had an eye to the future, that at some point they should be removed. And so this was a great opportunity when the main hall was being restored to look for other opportunities that provided the commercial return that the developer needed for the station, but to finally take out and return the main hall to the look that it was intended to have. And also there was an idea that had been brought forth to put holes in the floor, literally, to provide access to the basement from the main hall so that people wouldn't have to go all the way to the retail concourse in order to access the food court. As you can imagine, that also was extremely unpopular. And so I think a great compromise was forged where the digital signage was permitted. It was reviewed by all the historic agencies and the owners. And of course, we had those digital signs in Grand Central in New York, so there was precedent for that. In exchange for taking out the center cafe and the fountains and restoring the floor. So it took a couple of years, I think, to get to that compromise, but it turned out to be a great compromise. And now when you walk into the main hall, you really see it as Daniel Burnham intended.
Wonderful. So you spoke a bit just previously about historic agencies. Please tell us a bit more about whether the historic agencies like the District State Historic Preservation Office were involved in all these changes.
They were several organizations in the city, including the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the DC State Historic Preservation Office, and the U.S. Commission for Fine Arts, oversee the station in various capacities and are obviously very concerned with proper oversight of the station. And then we also have other volunteer organizations that work with us as well. And so they've always been very, very helpful to us. They're great partners. And the station was actually on the threatened list of the National Trust for Historic Preservation back in 2012. And we worked with them. We developed a historic preservation plan to guarantee the station's historic preservation and stewardship, and we were proudly removed from that threatened list a few years after that, and we continue to work with them every day now on any projects that we do that really impact the look or structural capacity of the station.
That is wonderful. So historically, were the historic agencies involved with the station?
They were very involved in the 1980s renovation. They had to approve virtually the entire restoration and all elements of the restoration. They had historic plans back then. A great deal of work, I think, went into looking again at the original drawings from 1906 because many changes had taken place over the years because of the two world wars and the Depression and, of course, the 1950s. So they were very engaged. I think they laid a very good foundation for being involved. For many years, they didn't see a need. There weren't a lot of changes. But then, of course, when the master plan effort began in 2010 and was then announced in 2012, they immediately re-engaged because they, again, wanted to make sure that although we're going through expansion and need to modernize the rail yard in those aspects, again, to make sure that we always have stewardship of the historic station at the forefront of everything they do. So they continue to be great stakeholders and have been very involved in the past few years, and I'm sure will continue to be.
Wonderful. So what other improvements were made to the historic elements of Union Station?
When we finished the work in the main hall, continuing then, well, I shouldn't say, when we finished the ceiling work in the main hall,
Right.
we then worked with the Department of Transportation here in the district and with the National Historic Trust and with the National Park Service. So through those entities, we have been able to receive a variety of grants. So we have continued with the preservation, with the full restoration of all of the Legionnaires in the main hall and in the West Hall, with the complete cleaning of the granite that we just finished in the main hall and almost finished in the West Hall. And we're completing a floor restoration. And then we're also we're starting the restoration of the elements in the East Hall. We also did the rostral columns out front, the gold eagles that you see out front. They were completely restored as well. So we've continued to do many elements of the many historic elements over the years, and we're just about complete, I think, with the major historic element restoration.
So let's move on to a slightly different topic now. Union Station has been an appealing location for persons who are homeless and or have special needs such as mental health issues. How is this population provided assistance to appropriate services in the district?
We do have a very large volume of people that come to the station, spend their day in the station or its immediate environs. Unfortunately, many of these persons have mental health issues or addiction issues, and some of them are simply homeless. So we have, I think, great partnerships we've developed for the law enforcement aspects with Amtrak Police, Metropolitan Police, Park Service Police, and Metro Police. But more importantly, we have all come together and are supporting an organization called H3. And they provide advocacy services and support services. So anyone who is in the station, we try to make sure that they have access to Amy Angel and her organization, everything from tax preparation to finding food, to finding the appropriate shelter in DC, addressing clothing needs if that's what we have. So again, we certainly don't encourage persons to come to Union Station. We really don't have proper services for them, but we do try to help them get to a place where they can receive those services. And that's the best that we can do, and we do try to provide that here.
Yes, I know Amy Angel and the H3 Project, and they do amazing work.
They do amazing work, and they have developed really close relationships, as I said, with some of the other stakeholders, NOMABID, Amtrak. So it really is a great collaboration that they've built over the past few years, and we're all very proud to be able to support them, both financially and just generally in other ways that we can.
Exactly. So, currently, what is the focus for preserving the station in the immediate future?
Well, just like a house that's 40 years old, when a building such as Union Station is 40 years old in terms of its most recent restoration of roofs and utility systems such as HVAC and other kinds of things, it is time for all of those to be upgraded. It's a very solid, granite and beautiful granite and marble building, but Many elements in order to operate year after year need to be upgraded, and also technologies change and more efficient systems are developed. So it is definitely time to replace all the roofs in Washington Union Station, as well as the heating and ventilation systems, and also make improvements, restore some of the masonry and other kinds of elements of the station. So that I think should be the focus for the next 5 years. And we have plans to do just that. Will be long, a tedious process while you're using a building. It's not like you can vacate the building and go in and replace everything at once. And we want this to remain a very vital intermodal transportation center. Prior to COVID, it was the most visited building in Washington, D.C. By far, actually used by more people than any of the local airports. So a lot of people need to use the station every day for many reasons, but at the same time, we really do need to embark upon a major renovation, or I guess rehabilitation just of the systems, not impacting upon any of the historic elements of the building whatsoever. And again, all of these improvements will be overseen both by the authority having jurisdiction for code compliance, as well as our historic stakeholders, to make sure that we're not having any negative impact upon the historic elements of the building. So with that proper care continuing, this building should continue to be one of the most magnificent buildings in the city for the next century, as it has for the past century.
Beverly, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me today about Union Station over the last 10 years, everything that was accomplished while you were president and CEO of USRC. I can definitely say with all my confidence and all my heart that everyone at USRC is going to miss having you around here full time, as is everyone at Union Station, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve USRC and to be the steward of that magnificent station here in Washington, D.C.